Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Production, Dr. Speed Selling, and this is the Raging Verbalist number 261. For those of you keeping track, hopefully you are. If you're new, welcome, welcome. If you are a person who is a veteran, an alumnus, whatever else you want to think of yourself, glad that you made it back. Of course, you can always catch us on YouTube and Facebook. Our Facebook group is the Position to Win book, which is actually my book, Position to Win book. Ta-da! All right. So real quick, let me introduce the ever lovely Sandra, because she is the one who asked me the questions that you would ask me if you were sitting where she is sitting, but it would be a little crowded, wouldn't it? Anyway, welcome, Sandra.
Hello, how are you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. This is going to be fun. We're going to go through some really cool stuff. So what are we talking about today? What is our topic du jour?
All right, so we're covering the new year. So have you prepared your resolutions for the new year?
I've started, and in fact, I actually work on them as the year goes on, but I will work on them through that end of the year, beginning of the year, and then hone it to a list. But I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going with those. How about yourself?
I do, yeah. We're kind of working on a goals list last week, kind of pinning everything down, and we'll kind of like get everything good to go this holiday week and maybe refine a couple things as the new year starts, I suppose. But otherwise, yeah, good to go. Good to go.
Buy some scratchers, and
I
uh,
have some in the cabinet right now, actually.
yeah, you know, now that every football game is inundated with sports betting, and people just asking me now what I think about it. I'm thinking, God, how many people can be fooled by so many crazy things. So yes, sounds good. So we're both well on our way, and hopefully by the end of the session, all of you will be on your way to figuring out what you want to do in 25.
And many set resolutions with good intentions, but seem to fail. So why is that?
Well, first off, most people don't write them down. I mean, like, take a sheet of paper and write them down. And I know you're out there, you're saying, John, that's old school. I don't want to write them down. I'm gonna type them into a document. I'm going to put something down. I'm going to have that goal setting app that I, got, and I'm going to have that. It's going to, remind me. And well, yeah, whatever you want to call that. But most people don't actually, let's say, memorialize it. So however you want to do it, but I like to write it down because it's like a connection between my brain and the page and the ink and all of that. So that's like the biggest thing. So there are really three steps to failing on this process of not getting any of your resolutions actually done. And study after study shows, like, within a month, 80-90% of us have ditched them and moved on to whatever rut we were in before. So number one, so here are the ways that you got to deal with. Number one is they don't write them down, you know. So you need to commit to writing them down. You have to do that. I can't stress that enough. Number two is they don't take seriously the impact of what they're trying to do. You sit there and you say, all right, I'm going to quit smoking, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to exercise more, or I'm going to go make more money, or I'm going to do, be kinder and nicer, or I'm going to. Now, all sounds good, but it's pretty general, not real specific. And that's kind of a thing. So you don't take it seriously. And number three, reason why it fails is that the first time, you fall off the wagon, they're done. I had a boss who, I don't know, every year would quit smoking until he made it to we were out on a business trip, and then he would be in a bar, and, he'd be bumming cigarettes from people, and, he wasn't quitting smoking anymore, let alone doing anything else. So those are the three reasons why people fail. They don't write them down. They don't really understand the real seriousness of whatever you're going to do. And you really should take it seriously if you're going to make a resolution. And number three, of course, is that if you fall off the wagon, the only thing you can do is get back on the wagon.
All right. And if someone sincerely wants to change, how can they do that?
Well, I always like to think in terms of a framework, a process that you can do. And sometimes you're not ready to do the big goal. You maybe have to do a small goal before you can get to that big one. Reminds me of growing up in Colorado. You'd look at the mountains and you go, wow, let's go climb that mountain. Loved climbing mountains when I was young. And the first thing that you learn is that you have to climb this hill, the next hill, and the next hill, and several hills maybe before you really get to the mountain. So make sure that you have a framework and say, okay, I'm going to set aside some time. I'm going to make sure that this is what I really want to do, because we can all throw things out. I mean, if you say you're going to exercise more, that isn't enough. I'm going to lose weight, isn't enough. It has to be much more specific. You have to be much more directed in what you're going to do. Because if you're not, you're really not going to go out there and put out the effort. Life is already tough enough without you kind of putting yourself into that position. I also would point out that most of the resolutions that people set are usually like of a negative nature: gonna quit drinking, gonna quit smoking, gonna quit eating, gonna quit doing this, gonna quit doing that. Figure out some positive ones for your life, and that'll help you out. And most importantly is that review them often, reward yourself for becoming an achiever, and most importantly, forgive yourself when you end up human and life intercedes, and well, life intercedes.
And can you name some resolutions that you've made that you really did follow through on?
Well, I wrote for a number of years the resolution that I was going to write a book. I was going to write a book. I was going to write a book. And I would come up with a title. I would start working on it. Before I started, speaking, and before I started doing webinars and seminars and all of that, I would say, I really should go do that. And people would say to me, John, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. Well, it took me like 30 plus years of hearing that and writing it down before I actually wrote a book. Of course, shameless plug, John hold up book. So we have the book that I ended up writing, and that was really hard, but I stuck to that one because I said I'm going to do it. I did get help. I found out what I needed to do, because if something doesn't work because that, you have to do that. The On the other side is that if there's some health things that you want to do, or you want to make a step towards, is you have to kind of think, well, all right, what do I have to do in that regard? In that case, I was a smoker, especially from my Vegas days. Smoked a lot in sales. Smoked a lot. Got a guy with lots of energy, and that was that. And I smoked everything. I didn't smoke weed, but I smoked cigars. I had a pipe, I had cigarettes. I mean, you name it, I was smoking it. But the point of it is that I had to really make a decision that I want to quit smoking, and I didn't get it done the first time. I didn't get it done the second time. I didn't get Took me like 5 serious tries to get it done. I tried to taper off. I tried to do a variety of things. Didn't have Nicorette gum at the time. So frankly, I just hit a 40th anniversary, because really July 1st, 1985 was the last time I smoked any tobacco products. And yes, I've had people hand me cigars. Would have loved to have had them. The problem is that seduction of that nicotine, and don't tell me it's not addictive. It's super addictive. So it's been 40 years. Now, when you ask me, is this something that was easy to do? No. Was it worthwhile? Absolutely. Especially as I've gotten older and thinking about what my health would be like if I had continued smoking. And all of the times I see people walking around with, you know, wheeling around oxygen for themselves. My favorite, of course, is I was sitting outside of a pulmonologist, that's a lung doctor, and outside was a guy who was sitting there, and he had an oxygen tank, and he was sitting outside because, of course, he was smoking a cigarette with oxygen. I would not recommend that. But there was a guy who was probably, had some kind of really serious lung disease, and I'm glad I didn't end up with that, or haven't, but made a choice and did that, and that's really important. So those are a couple things that I really stuck to, and I would suggest figuring out what's really important enough that you're going to stick to it, and make sure that you actually make that happen. Now, with that, I will just point out to you that most people could actually benefit from thinking about, well, how would I make my life and my business more successful? Because we get people who are in the business. So I'd say, if you haven't done it yet, make this your resolution, or one of them. Shameless plug. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. It's available physically from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Millions, available through a variety of different means. Also available in electronic form with Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks. And if you want to order directly, you can go to position2winbook.com, position2winbook.com, pick it up there, and I will autograph it and I will say, make 2025 a fantastic and great year. Also, if you want to pick up our other book, which is Remote Work for a Better World, this is a book all about how you can do things remotely and do it well. Most of the time that I hear people complaining, I'm talking about business owners, is that their productivity of their employees or people are really low. That book will really help you out with that. And of course, get yourself a Raging Verbalist mug. What's better than just having a little bit of rage every day to get you going, get you sparked, and get you moving along? So check that out at position2winbook.com, position2winbook.com. All right, Sandra, what do we have next?
All right. So, how do you follow through and keep resolutions?
It's contrite to say one day at a time, but what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you have other activities. I have seen people who try to quit a bad or tough habit. I've quit a few of them, and they sit around and they just obsess about it. We have to be able to do other things. So substitution is a really good idea. Find another habit. So one resolution is to quit smoking. The other resolution is to do something else. Maybe express yourself or meditate or exercise or do something. But you have to have something to kind of distract yourself for a while, because once you get a certain distance down the road, it becomes relatively easier and it becomes more of a habit that you can stick to. So in my opinion, one of the most important things is that you always have something that fills that void, because we all know that uh, voids, vacuums, oh, it just sucks.
And how many resolutions or goals should you have?
Oh, I've had clients who've written 101 goals. There are people out there who say you need hundreds and hundreds of goals. The challenge with that is just you spend so much time trying to keep track and then you kind of wear yourself out. My suggestion is, and I have a lot of things that I work on a regular basis, but my suggestion is that you really pick the top 3, 5, 7 things that you really want to try to accomplish in this year and every year thereafter. And that way you can put the energy and intensity behind them. If something is really minor, is that really a resolution or just kind of a change in direction? It could be either. You get to decide. But I think that something that's more manageable makes sense. But I've seen literally people have 101 goals and they were a mess. In fact, they were really a pain in the neck to sit and talk to, because they were always late, and it sounded a lot like in Alice in Wonderland. I'm late for a very important date. So you got to think about what that really looks like. I think 3 to 5 to 7 goals makes a lot of sense.
And how do you focus on these?
Well, you have to be very clear, and being clear and having clarity about what you're trying to do. Now, one of the things I learned about how to play winning poker, you can apply this to anything in your life, is that there's really 3 steps. Number one is discipline. Number two is thought. Number three is control. Discipline just means that you're going to do what you're supposed to do when you have to do it, no matter what. Lots of things in life you want to cheat a little bit. You want to, kind of edge around it, maybe not actually do what you're supposed to do. Now you have to have that discipline. And the reason why they're in this order is that the discipline means that you're going to follow through and follow through and follow through. The second thing is thought. You have to think through what you're doing. See, when I realized that I was going to be a non-smoker, I didn't like keep an emergency pack just in case I needed it. By the way, I quit smoking, but my wife kept smoking for a while longer. That was a little tough at times, I can tell you that. But you have to have that thought process about what you're going to do. What happens when that crazy urge happens? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? And then control is that you have to understand that you're in control of your thoughts and your emotions, and you have to really be able to take that control mechanism that we all have, to whatever extent that you have, and put that in place. Now, it doesn't mean that it's perfect, but that you need to do that. So if you apply discipline, thought, and control to whatever, and I would just say the most important things in your life, what you'll discover is that you will achieve more than you thought you were going to achieve any other way.
And more specifically, for those who are entrepreneurs in sales or marketing, what resolutions would you recommend to help them to reach their career goals?
There's lots of different ways to go, but we start with the most important, which is how are you positioned in your marketplace or wherever you are doing business? This is the essence of why most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Most careers fail in the first 5 minutes. And that is that you have to know how you're positioned and where you fit in this world. Now, once you know that, you may discover that you're not happy with it. That's one of the things that I discovered is that I would help people figure out where their position, what position they occupy, and they'd go, oh, I hate this. I don't want to be that. I want to be somebody else. So we have to work our way through that. So positioning is where we start. And that means that starting out with this new year is figure out where you are, what your position is, and how you can deal with that. And more importantly, is that if you have a direction that you'd like to go, for me, I found out where I was positioned. I was a good natural salesperson. I had learned a lot of very good people skills. I could read people very effectively. However, I was dealing with the wrong size pond. So I knew I needed to pivot. I talk about pivoting a lot in the book, but pivoting means that I've got to find a way to alter the direction of where I was going and said, how do I find other markets? I did the analysis and I then started moving towards doing technology, which of course changed my life dramatically. However, it always started with positioning because I knew exactly how I could put forth my best effort and show people what that was going to look like. If you're in sales, marketing, entrepreneurs, if you're out there doing that, you're trying to build a business. See, that's the other part. Anybody who's in sales or marketing, even if you work for somebody else, you have to think about it as your own business and treat it as such and show that level of responsibility and commitment. And people will recognize you and things will improve for your own sake and for the sake of everyone around you. So to improve upon your career, you have to understand where you are, where you want to go, and what are the steps that you have to take to get there. Oftentimes, it is not one step. We are tremendously driven, especially today, to say, give me 3 simple steps to get there, when it may take, in fact, more than that. Work towards that goal, work in that direction. And what you'll discover is that you'll learn along the way the things that you would have never known until you were in the middle of it. Do that and you become more successful in your career. Make a resolution to actually always understand what your position is. So therefore, you're never at a loss when somebody says, "Who are you? What do you do? And how can you help me?" You can answer those 3 questions and answer them succinctly. You'll be well on your way to improving your career and going in a better direction than you are today. And with that, this is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. B. Selling. Well, for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 261. Have a fantastic new year. Treat yourself the right way, the best way possible, and take care that you're going to do something amazing this year.